Use your own video. There we go.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming to the call. We're really excited to bring you this call. We're trying something new, partnering with some outside vendors to bring you some new stuff that's outside of the Trusted Advisors realm. So today we have Luke and James. They're experts in their field of marketing from the Anderson Group. Just want to let you know we're going to keep this to right around an hour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you all. But if you have questions at any time, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions. All right, so I'm just going to pass it over to them and get everybody started.
Okay, there we go. Hey, everybody. I'm Luke Bunning. I'm the Digital Resource Director at Anderson Group. I'm basically the guy who manages all the different web resources, whether it's social media, development, ad placement, whatever the current need is or the current style is calling for, and help manage it, make it part of whatever our project plans are.
And I'm James Gector. I'm a content strategist here at Anderson Group, and mainly my job is copywriting as it extends to almost all forms of content. So it could be copywriting for emails, for blogs, and then all the way into social media and video. So also there's a component there of strategy. Where does content go? How do we target audiences? And we'll be talking about a lot of that kind of stuff today.
Yeah. And this is going to be a fairly broad summary of this topic. We can go infinitely into smaller details and how-tos. We're happy to answer any questions you guys have, but probably won't get into any specifics like, how to get into Snapchat and, post or things like that. It's going to be pretty broad, but it's still going to give you a great idea of exactly what has changed in marketing today and how you need to address that when you deal with your clients. So without any further ado, I think we're ready to get started. Okay, let's see here. There we go.
So first thing we want to talk about, why is this change different? And we hear it in marketing all the time, and almost every blog post starts out like this, that everything is changing, the market's changing, the change is going even faster. And we hear that language a lot and we start to get numb to it. But this change really is different, because when we look back and see who was in control of the transaction and who was in control of the interactions, by and large, it used to be businesses. However, what we're finding now is through technology enablement, customers are really the center of the transaction now. And that's primarily what we're going to talk about.
So as far as you guys go, we were talking with Jenna, and she said you guys pretty much run the gambit as far as what businesses you work in. Do you guys want to just call out real quick any agencies or businesses you work in so we can answer your questions and give examples that may be a little more relevant?
This is Doug Brown.
Hey, Doug.
Considering we've now done work in more than 70 industries.
Oh, good. We do.
I think if we want to use the hour to do something other than just talk about what industries we worked in, it's probably pretty safe that you can.
Okay, we'll give
anyone.
Whatever examples come to mind then. All right, we're moving on then. So the big thing that you should know is, and what has changed business, is the age of the customer. We've got here a small timeline. This is by Forrester Research. And in the early 1900s, it was the age of manufacturing. They can make a ton of widgets now instead of hand making every one. And from that came the age of distribution, was now that we have a ton of widgets, how do we get them out across to all the stores in the country and the world, ultimately? Then based on that, we got the computers in the 90s, and suddenly we have the age of information. That was, supply chains and how we control information to dominate flow and how products get distributed. And then 2010 is when we started to see the age of the customer. This is basically, up until this time, most advertising would be run by the company. So the brand says, here's our ad, here's what's good about our product. And then the customer would go into a store, also factored by both the retailer and the brand themselves, and find out more information. Those days are long gone. What we've got now is customers who are going online to find out everything they need to know. And that has changed the way marketing works and how businesses have to talk to their customers and package information they have and distribute to those consumers.
So the main topics we're going to talk about with how this looks is first we'll talk about how exactly customer expectations are changing. That all builds up to what a new customer journey looks like. As we're saying, with the customer being the focus, it has to look different. But what happens is we actually have a lot of data as businesses and you as consultants. There's tons of data out there that you can use to transform your business, how you reach customers, and you can actually take advantage of this. You don't have to feel victimized. You don't have to feel pushed out or that you don't have power. You actually have a lot of power, and that really comes through with data.
Yep. So we're going to start out with just how the customer expectation is changing. The first one, well, James, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so by and large, customers are just harder to please. And we know this, the main culprit is probably just mobile empowerment, and that's through smartphones, it's through tablets, it's through being able to access the internet on a remote device. You don't have to sit in an office, or you don't have to go home to a desktop computer to do a search. You can get information very fast.
Right there in the aisle of the store.
Yeah, no matter where you are, on the store, in the street, outside the business, inside the business. But the other piece is that they're actually going beyond websites, because we used to have controls businesses. We used to say, you come to our website, we'll tell you why our products are great. We'll tell you everything you need to know. But now they're going beyond websites. They're on social media. They're going through apps. They're talking to other people. And because we can't control that information, some of that has backfired on us, and customers are a little harder to please now that they can kind of control the conversation themselves. Speed, just because as technology speeds up, it's just a natural thing. Personalized content, here's a really important one. We're going to hit on this constantly. Personalized, customized content. We are moving away from the broadcast model. We can't just put one message out there. Customers expect to be catered to have a tailored message. The best example that we've probably hit on a couple times is just Amazon with product recommendations. Or if you're shopping for a particular product, you might get an email later that says, we noticed you're looking at this product. Here's a few more. Here's a promo. That kind of personalized content really resonates. And when customers don't get that, they might be harder to please. They know that you're not really catering to them. Effortless processing, that's just almost like a technology, almost a hardware thing. It needs to be effortless. Oh my gosh. Because the second that they find a hiccup, there's so many other services and solutions they can go to, because technology enables them to just hop to the next one. And then generous support, aside from just saying somebody who's on a support line, you could support them through social media, you could support them through content, pre-recorded videos, even a webinar like this. If you provide something like this on demand to a customer, you're providing generous support, and it really has to happen at every level.
Right. And some of those levels are multi-channel shopping, which would be being able to, endless aisles is a good example of that. If you go to Target right now, you could say you're looking for, some sports equipment. And they have shin guards and cleats there, but they don't have jerseys. Now they have endless aisles, so you can actually go on your computer and say, okay, you can scan the different products. I'm getting these cleats, these shin guards, and this shirt that you found online. And what happens, then you just go up to the counter and pay. That virtual shirt is now getting sent to your house. So that's actually combining the real world and the digital world, just making people's lives easier. And choice of payments, another one. We've all heard of Bitcoin, but I think it's more along the lines of Apple Pay and PayPal and a lot of other services that people use to pay now. So that's another factor. And also reviews. I'm sure you guys know the value of reviews these days, but it's really become a powerhouse in how people trust the information they're receiving. Often there's a lot more trust behind a review than there actually is behind real information provided by the vendor. So that really helps the customer experience focus, which is customers now, it's not just a product they're looking for or a service. And all these trends actually apply to B2B also. I don't want you guys to think we keep saying a B2C model, business to customer model. But this also applies to business. But they're looking for an experience. So it's beyond just I get this service, I get this product. It's going to get more into what is my experience buying this. Amazon, once again, does a great job of making you feel like, wow, these people know me. These are people I trust. Let's go for what they have to offer us. We have here, and to blame for all this, Jim Blasingame has the law of customer expectations. That's basically, once a new capability is available and people are used to it, that becomes the new norm. And I don't know if you've had this with your clients, but often, I'm sure they say, how do I give them free shipping? How do I do free returns? That kills our overhead or our markup. So, but that's what it is. It's the minimum expectation now. People just expect it because they're getting it on eBay, Amazon, and most online vendors.
So one of the things that came out of this, and this is a Google coined term, is micromoments. And these are moments where somebody's on their phone or they're talking to one of the services you see there, Alexa probably being the most popular one. They're looking for an immediate answer and a tailored answer to that immediate need. And it could be something like what you're seeing there. If you're looking for a service, you're going to say, I want the best blank company near me. If you're going out and you need to know what the weather's going to look like, maybe you're asking what the weather looks like today. If you're looking for something personal like home insurance or really anything for your home in general, if you have an emergency and you're looking for a plumber in your close vicinity, you're basically expecting a quick answer. You don't want to have to do research. You want to see maybe the top 3 at best. And these services have empowered that. And because these are such small little moments, it's becoming harder and harder to be seen if you're not presenting the right content or not positioning yourself correctly.
Google gives these 4 as the key micro moments. I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, and I want to buy. When people research stuff, they want to know. I want to know what the best car is for gas mileage without sacrificing speed and pickup. I want to go, it could be to a place, but more often it's, where do I go to get? I want to go get this car, but I don't want to go farther than 2 hours. I want to do, which is, I want to figure out how to make something happen, or I have a plan to go somewhere or complete this project, and I need to know how to do that. And I want to buy is, of course, how do I get this? And those, once again, apply to B2B as well. How do I do this? You'll find that people are going on to Google and figuring out the best process to figure things out. And that's where the content we keep referring to is going to come into play. You need to make sure your clients understand that it's not so much putting all your content in your website and hoping people come to it, but chopping it up into little bits and scattering it out to all the different places where your customer is going to be looking. So then they're part of the consideration set.
And when it comes to winning micromoments, customers essentially just want to get things done. They want that immediate answer. And so what you sell doesn't really matter as much as making the transactions. Essentially, all of the below that you see, customized information maybe being the most important, as we keep hitting on. But I just want to be clear that transactions are any exchange of value. It's not necessarily the final purchase. Maybe it's downloading a white paper. Maybe it's downloading a webinar. It could be really a whole host of things, but it needs to be essentially easy. A lot of this, what this amounts to, easy, convenient, and customized.
So that basically sums up how customers' expectations have changed and are changing. Basically what we want to do to reach these customers, we said a little bit about cutting it up, but we want to create excitement around the buyer's upcoming experience. So that's going to be tantalizing them as far as, this is why this is a good product. This is how you're going to feel when this happens. So, I think you probably heard the pain points. You want to figure out how you can help your client address their clients' pain points. Well, now it's more of, what are the positives? How can we get excitement on this? How is their life going to improve? Then from that, the information that they get should build their confidence that they're ready to make the next step. As we know, there's infinite amounts of information on the web. And so we need to have a stopping point that gets them to say, okay, I think I know what's going on. Usually it's through comparisons or a very specific, here's 5 things you need to know before you buy a blank or when doing this. So then the person says, all right, I got my 5 things. They'll probably go to 2 more. If it's the same stuff, they say, all right, I think I'm good. The next is the budget. That's always going to be in there. Google says that that's never something that you can totally discount. So you need to let them know that, okay, I'm not going to look stupid and go to buy it and find out that it's over my price range. And then this 4th one is an interesting one. In the old days, it used to be about brand loyalty. Now it's just about that instant experience. So you want to confirm with that client that, hey, you just had a great experience with this product or service. And then you want to encourage directly or indirectly, them to share that experience with others. And that's going to be evangelism, which we'll get that. So in the end, we want to just give them the information they need and the confidence to know they're ready to make their decision. Next step is going to be the new customer journey.
All right, so here's the good news. Well, it's very good news because we wrote it so big. You don't essentially have to be the cheapest. You and your clients don't have to go to the very bottom, race to the bottom line, because sometimes a quality experience can actually be worth a premium. The experience overall is going to be way more important, though. So we'll see how that factors in here.
Unfortunately, you still do need to be competitive for the products and services, et cetera. But the most dangerous thing right now is being invisible. There's so much competition for specific types of content on the web. And that's how Google's going to be looking at things. They no longer say, oh, this website is about brand X, or, this website's about this cog. They say, where is the information about this cog that I can give to this person? So they may be pulling little, pages, comments, news articles, even LinkedIn articles, or even posts on social to answer these questions. So what you have to make sure is that you have content that's packaged in a way that it can be in those areas, so you're actually considered. Otherwise, you can have all the answers and all the right products, but if they can't find you and they're looking online, they're not going to be knocking on your door.
So here's what the old customer journey looked like. This is the one we all know. We all love it too. Starts out with awareness, and that could be, in general, it was mass communications. And then they came into the point of sale, and they said, well, what about the dryer? What are the specs for the dryer? What do I need? I have X number of people in my home. What kind of car do I need? And through that research, they would decide in the store or at the location or through a catalog, and they would figure out, this is what I want to purchase. Then after the purchase happens, they get the experience. And based on that experience, if it's a good one, which hopefully it is, then you build brand loyalty over time. So the person says, I'll always drive a Ford. I'll always use this kind of flashlight or hunting rifle. And this is going to be very different when we flip over to see the new customer journey.
And that was mainly because of the control of information. You'll notice at every one of these points, usually that information was controlled by either the manufacturer or the retailer. Awareness, that's the manufacturer or the retailer through billboards, TV, whatever. Point of sale, you're in the store, so that's going to be the sales rep. So, they're limited. The information was very limited for them right through the purchase. But the new one, of course, allows us to do the online research. So the new journey is similar, but has a couple more steps. Awareness is basically the same, only we now add in all the digital aspects, digital marketing aspects of building awareness. But then comes the online research. That's where the client goes and says, all right, let me find out about this stuff. And that can be them standing in the aisle. If it's a retail place, they can stand in the aisle and say, I want to know more about this product before I even look at the package. Or it can be, yes, that sales rep just told me 5 things. I'm going to go check and see if he's right about that. So that's the online research. The point of purchase is still in there, but it's such a tiny little bit now. Usually when a person, we're going to give you some stats in a minute, but when a person comes into that store, they're pretty ready to make their decision. So the POP has a slight influence, but it's usually a very small one comparatively. Purchase is very much the same, mostly salespeople being facilitators. Experience is experience as far as how they see the product. And then the next point, instead of brand loyalty, now it's evangelism. Basically, it's a much quicker thing. And we're going to go into each one of these things in more detail. But evangelism is going to be a quicker pop out to a lot more people than a loyal brand would be. So I guess we'll start with awareness.
So this is what we were talking about before, where mass communication can still be relevant, which is great. There's more of a findability aspect to this as well, because we keep talking about having that content being found, but you can still make customers aware in general of what it is through traditional forms. And we don't need to go through these. We understand what all these are. It's usually print, but even web ads are starting to fade away as something that was it's not as common. Now you'll see social media ads kind of pop up a little more.
The next one is online research, which we talked about. This can take place in several ways. In the old days, it was, what website do I go to find this information? But now, it's whatever I'm using now, I can find information on that. So a person's on Facebook, they're going to find information on it from both that company's site or Facebook page, but mostly through their peers in the group. And that can be B2B in LinkedIn and others. As far as search engine and voice search, like we said, the search engines now are saying, where's that piece of content? Not what website are we sending them to, where's that piece of content? So we need to make sure that you have content specifically related to what their customer's question is. The last one, or the other ones, are blogs, articles, which would be people who are influencing the decision. Reviews, again, you're going to keep seeing this pop up. And they're not hard to get, but it's hard to keep up in trying to get them. And the last one is comparing prices and vendors. I'm sure you've seen it on Amazon or a ton of other e-commerce sites. Compare. So even in the search, it compares things. So you want to make sure that you are in that consideration set when that comparison happens.
And this is kind of what it looks like, because again, I'm going to keep saying that just because the customers are in the center of the transaction, there's still a lot of power that businesses have. You can harness a lot of the stuff that's happening. When we go on social media and we see people pushing these products and saying how wonderful they are, you can take advantage of that. You can really partner up with some of these influencers or evangelists or just fans in general, and you can really use that as they can spread out that message to their peers. The next 2 points are kind of what we've been talking about. I don't think we need to reiterate, but yeah, just when people are searching for targeted content, they need relevant content that meets those needs. And it needs to be across that buyer journey, no matter what point they are, whether they just found out about it or whether they just picked up the watch and they need to know, hey, here are the 5 cool things you can do with that. Reviews are on here again, and just building strong review assets, taking advantage of all the forms of assets, from testimonials to stuff that people are posting on social media to Yelp reviews. There's a lot out there. And then comparison, being in the consideration set, as Luke just mentioned. And then also not being in the wrong consideration set. If you're offering a very high-end service, you don't want to be considered with other low-end services. You want to make sure that your branding and your sales process and your marketing really communicates where you feel you are, so that you're not being considered by either the wrong customers or not being considered by your target customers.
And then as far as how you can influence that, a lot of people are now looking at, what they want to align with the company. We had talked about brand loyalty. It's not so much I trust the brand and whatever they do, but now it's more of, are they like me? Is this a company that I trust and a company that's going to give me more than just a good price? Often it comes down to what the company's commitments are. I'm sure you see on the news all the time, Chick-fil-A is backing these people or whatever is backing these people, and that causes a lot of talk one way or the other. So it's important to have an understanding of what your company is committed to and how you relay that to the customers. It can just be a commitment to customers. That's always been a thing. We're committed to you and making you happy. But nowadays it's a lot more specific. The web has allowed you to bring a lot more people into your voice range. So, we're finding if you're selling like outdoors equipment and stuff like that, you may be committing to veterans, or you may be, behind our police or fire, because what you're doing is you're saying, who are these customers and where are their commitments? So if your company aligns with that, they say, oh, you know what, I'd rather support those guys. The better experience, we went into that with Amazon. The online community, you'll find a lot of products and cultures have a whole community of influencers. This can be bloggers, this can be celebrities, it could be just even local people who have formed communities on this. And it can be physical or it can be online. The environment, of course, is a favorite and definitely a hot topic nowadays. And then price, can't forget price.
And I'll mention one more thing on this. The one thing that's happening on social media is they are seeing through some of the old tactics. So when it's Earth Day and you change your logo to green, it's not as effective as if you actually demonstrate it. So if you actually go out and plant 100 trees, or if you actually have something like a green initiative going on, it's always more powerful than just paying lip service, because on social media, it's so easy for them it's so easy for them to go back around on the other side and see, well, they're actually not doing anything. They just changed the colors of their logo. And then they can spread that message so fast, it almost backfires.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with the environment. That's really a touchy one.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a true commitment from your client. Another one is the purchase experience. That's just, a lot of people think it's when they used a product, but now it's the whole buying experience. So as soon as they place that order, how fast does the order come? Whether they get notified, your order's on the way, it'll be there tomorrow. Whether they know that their information is secure, their email address, their payment information, all that, they have to be totally confident that it's going to be a quick, smooth, painless experience. And also packaging, when they see it, oh wow, this is really well packaged, this is a good product. And then social effect. What that is how a person is going to talk about their purchase and how they're going to feel in the context of the social media world. You know, you see people always posting selfies of this, then at a restaurant, then at this. They're going to be posting that with the product. So it's important. And also, if it's B2B, they're going to talk about, you know, we just invested in this new thing, or we just had our whatever is cleaned. It looks like we're on a, you know, on schedule for us to have a great year because our equipment is now ready to go. So all this is going to be how their purchase affects them and their kind of status in the world, because they can share that with the world, and that's what is encouraged and pretty much the norm now.
All right, so now we're at the piece that kind of replaced brand loyalty, and then we call it evangelism. You can call it fans or whatever you want to call this, and it really is somebody who just tells everyone about their experience. What we want to impress on this part is it can be really temporary, because the second that experience, however long it lasts, goes negative, that person can share a negative message just as easily as they did the positive ones. And the typical channels you're going to see these on are social media again, and it's the traditional ones, but it's also really huge on YouTube and all the streaming platforms. Podcasts, which are, I mean, they're blowing up in popularity. And then there's those pesky reviews again. They're coming back every time. But the really important part here is that evangelism doesn't equal brand loyalty. We're seeing much, much less of that, because it's just
everything's moving so fast. Yeah, things are going so fast now that, you know, and you see on the news, it's just, you know, what's the next topic? What's the next topic? Mm-hmm. Same with this. You know, a person can buy this, say, oh, it's great, I love it. But the next day they put it on their drawer, they've forgotten all about it, and they're moving on to the next thing. So you'll find sometimes your clients may say, oh yeah, look, we're getting great reviews. These clients love us. They may not. They may look back on that particular product, but the second a competitor comes up with a better situation, that's where their brand loyalty is going to be that day. So you can't rely on brand loyalty as a building thing. It's more of fireworks now.
So when we want to mention that, the PDF that we'll send out, or that'll be distributed at the end of this, there's a link here that goes to an example of millennials choosing a car. I thought it might be better as a self, I guess I'll confess that I'm a millennial, despite the hair, what that might tell you. And when I purchased the car last year, my experience was very close to what the new customer journey looks like. I was expecting a child. I needed a bigger car. I needed safety features. And I kind of knew the brand I was looking for, but my journey really looked a lot like what we showed you right there. I did most of my research online through online forums to find the exact make and model I wanted to look for. I used the dealership websites to narrow down the actual choices. And then when one of them alerted me to a price break, that ended up being the one that I jumped on. I made one trip to one dealership and I believe one test drive, and I purchased it that day. The salesperson helped me, but there wasn't a lot of traditional sales tactics going on. In fact, I would say he was more of a facilitator, but he did exactly what I wanted to do. He was very helpful. He guided me through the actual purchasing process. And that was a really great experience. And I got out of there with a car that day. Now,
at every step, you were in control of the information.
There was no step where I felt like somebody else was taking over. They met the price that I asked for. It was a lot of, I didn't really feel any negative effect. Now, I don't really do with the evangelism part, but by and large, it looks a lot like that journey. And I can't speak for other millennials, honestly, but it was it's pretty close to what we're looking at now, with very little of that awareness and in-store information gathering.
Right. Okay, now we're gonna.
Can I ask one question before we move on to the next piece?
Yeah.
So, based on what I've heard, are you advocating that in essence, salespeople are becoming more order takers than they are salespeople?
Yes. Well, a salesperson's job is still going to be to create the best experience possible and try to lead the customer towards what they think is the best solution or what they're being incentivized to sell. But what they have to understand is they are no longer in the role of educator. You know, it used to be, hi, what are you guys looking for today? Well, we're looking for a dishwasher. All right, what are your features you're looking for? Now they already have that figured out. So they have to be aware in individual sales capabilities of knowing how informed the customer is, because most of the time the customer really in their mind is ready to have that purchase. So they want to still have the same goals. You know, we still want to make the sale. We still want the customer to be happy, and for us as a retailer or a reseller to have our company be considered as great. But there is going to be that read of, is this customer ready to buy? If they're ready to buy, hands off. Just let it happen. If they are not, then you can add in your influence and your expertise. But once again, people now are trusting what a Joe Schmo in his review is versus the person who's the actual agent of the company. So, you know, with so much fake promotion of things, people are very wary now of salespeople. So they'd rather hear it from a peer, even though that may be totally incorrect. So, and as a salesperson, as a retailer, they need to be getting out on their own as far as we can help facilitate that, you know. So they're not out of it. You know, if you're a car dealer, you don't let Ford and Buick do all the advertising. They're going to be doing a lot. They're out there. But then you have to make sure that when it's time to buy, there's your store. So that's in the how and the buy. So from that aspect, there's a lot of work putting yourselves out there as the facilitator, but you still have the same goals, which is get that sale and hopefully steer it towards the right direction, but just be aware that you're not overtaking and conflicting with their information. That okay? Great. Okay, so yeah, and then customers are educating online, and evangelism does not mean loyalty. So you're gonna have to consistently come up with a process that encourages happy customers to promote your product just for that one time, well, expecting it to just be that one time, because often they won't go a second time. They're gonna be moving on to something else. Now we're gonna be talking about this transformative power of data. So this is one of those things that is, you know, a ton of information on, but we're going to try to get through it as best we can. You know, the old customer journey, companies were in the process. They had the control of the information. Now customers control the information. They choose it from where they want to go, usually through the communication styles that they're used to, whether that be social or articles or blogs. And then they take that data and make a decision. So where do we stand in that? Well, there's also a lot of data out there for us. We can find data on the customer and apply that to improve our business and our ROI. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't quite do that correctly. There are some that do, but usually people are falling into one of three areas. One, they don't really know what data they have. Yeah, we have an email list somewhere and we have our net sales. Not really sure where we go from there. The other is you have data, but you can't collect and centralize it. Okay, yeah, we got it. Our email lists were pretty successful. I think we had some successful emails. We got some hits on our websites, and yeah, we had some other ads that I think worked, but I'm not really sure how they go together. The other is you have the data, it's harnessed, you get an awesome report, here's our hits, our bounce rate, all this stuff. But then what do you do with that information? And a lot of times, you know, executives are really happy they're getting these reports, but then they quickly realize, I don't know what to do after I get this data. So that's something that you want to harness in and make sure you're actually using data to accomplish some real goals. So as far as how you're going to use that data, here's some common ways that people are using it. One is buyer targeting. Since there's so many options now, especially digitally, you want to make sure that you're getting as much bang for your buck as you can. And luckily, there's a lot of people out there, and most of these target markets, while comparatively small, usually you can get a really high conversion rate because you're marketing specifically to someone who understands or who's actually looking for your product. So you can target the buyer. You can research how the buyer works. You can research how people are buying your product, competition. You can also see how they're making decisions. also pricing, vendor searching, how they're buying. Are they buying online? Are they buying it through a retailer? And also you can get competitive intelligence. So you can actually find out what your competitors are doing and what's going to be working and what may not work for you.
So this is kind of what it looks like now. When you're using data to inform business processes, marketing, sales, branding, really it's about identifying the audience, and then through that you can start to form that message. We're getting back to that customized content piece we're talking about. Based on what you find there and the data, you modify the tactics. You don't have to scrap everything, which is great. And then using the data from everything, the results and your initial metrics, now you can actually calculate ROI probably more accurately than ever before.
So the first one, identifying your audience. It's getting out of control now. It's just insane what China's doing, and America actually has a lot going on too. But the most practical and common ones currently are geo-targeting, which is you are focusing on a specific area. This can get really minute if you want. Like if there is a trade show going on and your client is, goes to those trade shows or is showing in that trade show, you can actually geo-target within a half mile of that specific location's address. So then everybody who's going in that area is going to be getting, when they're on their phone, they're going to be getting ads for that. They'll be getting it in whatever app, social media, all of that is going to be geo-targeted to that area. Demographics, it used to be what's the gender, what's the income. Now we can get much more specific. You can get their interests. You can get what keywords they're searching. My favorite example for this is we had a senior living community. And so all our content was about senior living. But we found that everybody was searching retirement homes. So all the senior living content wasn't showing up, just didn't exist. And then there's the conundrum though is, that's not very PC anymore to call it a retirement home. So you have to figure out ways to get that kind of content out to those inquiries, but not compromise your original brand. The other is location data and biometric data. We've linked to you'll see we have a lot of links on this in the PDF that you can link to the actual article. But I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, so this one's interesting. This is an example of a company doing both of these, and it's actually Walmart. I believe it's only in the test phase at this point. Yeah. But what they're doing is there's a technology, sensors in the cart itself. So imagine you're walking around in Walmart with the cart. They are actually figuring out where you are in the store, and they're also measuring your biometric data. And I think it's only heart rate at the moment. Yeah. So what the idea is, once they pair up that data, they can see how you're reacting to things based on where you are in the store. So what parts of the store are interesting to you? Is it the clothing section? Is it the food section? There's end caps. What's creating the best reaction, and vice versa? What's creating kind of a poor reaction, or where do people feel stressed?
The point of purchase, how's that working?
Oh, yeah. And there's an interesting study that I also just read this week based on emotions. When people share little happy faces in their text messages or on social media, there's a company that actually looked at those on a very high level, and they can see how people feel emotionally about different industries. They looked at how people's emotions changed during the Super Bowl based on what their fan base was. And just imagine this kind of data in the hands of any company, being able to know your exact customer's emotions based on where they are in a physical store or where they are in the particular part of the customer journey. There's a lot you can really gain from this kind of stuff.
I mean, you pair that with facial recognition. Yes. You're going to have customers, they walk into Walmart and they say, hey, Luke, how you doing? How's that tent working for you? We now have sleeping bags that actually match that color. It's in aisle 6. We know you like being over in aisle 6. So it can get pretty crazy. The next one is it's not just about demographics. And we kind of touched on this before. Yes. It's about the communities.
Yeah, and really there's a really great quote about value that I want to try and find real quick. And essentially, in the age of the customer, value is what you offer and values are how you behave. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying before about embodying those values versus changing a logo kind of on like a surface level. So a lot of that factors into here. If you're matching the values and interests and the involvement of your target customers, you're really going to be setting yourself up really well.
Yep. And then the next one's forming your message. And this is the content area. Content's probably going to be the key word that you need to remember as far as everything is now content in terms of marketing. It used to be, what is your message? And that's why we called it Form Your Message. But it's really about what's your content. It can be a video, it could be a meme, it could be a white paper, it could be a webinar. And so that content, but traditionally it's going to be just pages on your website or blog pages. And what that's going to do is it has to relate directly to that data you gained on your client. So it's going to be what influencers are saying. You can research what people are saying as far as often there's leaders in the industry that either are giving lectures, webinars, YouTube videos is another good one. And just by watching those, you'll understand that these are the hot topics. So you need to make sure your content addresses those. And if you can get some thought leadership in there, that's a real plus too. Reviews, of course, really help you identify what the problems are with your product or other people's products. So that can really help if you go on and just start evaluating reviews. You can say, oh wow, people are really concerned about this element, it doesn't fit, or it has to be replaced more often than other parts. And the other one is social monitoring. There's a lot of software out there where you just type in the word and then any post that relates to that, you'll get. So someone posts on Facebook, I just bought a Prius and I didn't realize that they were going to be so slow when they first start. Suddenly that's a real thing that has to be addressed. And if you can catch it when it's still early in there, especially if you have a smaller company, you can get on there and address it. Hey Joe, it's Prius. Sorry about this false start, but what's really happening is you're not engaging this element, and that would solve your problem. And so by socially monitoring, once again, you're in all these different areas and you're allowed to immediately address and affect what's going to later be broadcasting. We haven't said directly, but all these little touch points cause ripples that then kind of go out into the ether. So even though that person is a flash in the pan evangelist, the old model is they were a loyal brand follower, but they just tell their family, maybe their neighbor, a couple people. Now we can have a 16-year-old girl in opening her Gucci bag online. She can get 1 million people that say, oh my gosh, that's a great bag. So it's a lot more reach for this sudden burst of support for your product. So as far as the real-time effect of the marketing is, you are now able to monitor how it's performing. So let's say you have Google ads. You're allowed, now you can say, in the old days you'd say, okay, what's our budget for the year? We're going to spend this much on these print ads. We're going to do a television ad. We're going to do this stuff. And then you kind of let it run, and it runs through the year, and you spend the budget in the spot, and then you come back and look at it. Nowadays you can say, okay, we're going to start with 50% of our spend in Google, 20% on LinkedIn ads, and then 13% on Google Shopping. And then as those ads start to go, you can actually monitor in real time. Okay, these are turning into conversions. We're actually getting a return of X dollars for every ad that runs. So therefore, that's getting a lot more play than these tactics. So then you can actually move your stuff in the year, during the year. So everything becomes much more fluid. Excuse me, much more fluid, and allows you to optimize what's working. So you can do that, through Google Analytics, email analytics, social insights, even e-commerce, and marketing automation. All those things are going to show you data in real time. So you can say, okay, this month it's gone really well here. Maybe next month we keep more money on this part instead of that part. As far as marketing automation goes, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not, but basically what marketing automation is, it's artificial intelligence, as far as a lot of times a salesperson would have to have multiple touch points with a client and then keep track of what the reaction from the client was. So marketing automation, and I gave a list of about 8 of the top marketing automation companies. What they do is you start on a path, and then depending on the reaction from your prospect, it then creates another action. So if you send out an email, and people will open it and go to a specific part of your website or look at a product, it will then send an email on that particular product to that person. If it's, or if they don't buy, you could have a notification go to your sales team that says, hey, follow up on this guy. And you can say, hey, we noticed you were interested in this product. Is there anything I can help you with? So what happens then is you can get a lot more done as far as touch different prospects depending on their actions without, after you've set it up, you just kind of let it run and react to it. So that can really help. As far as when you're finally done with all your campaigns, you need to calculate whether it worked or not. In the old days, you'd run an ad and you're going on, your magazine had X number of impressions. Well, did that mean a sale? Who knows? We had more sales, so I guess that ad worked. But now you can, if you set up the goals in the beginning, you can actually get it. So you say, yeah, this X dollars came from this investment. So it takes a little work setting up, but it can be really effective down the line as far as transforming how your business grows and how it works.
I'll also mention, and even this can even apply to traditional parts of the business that haven't been able to show ROI before, including, I think public relations is probably a really great example, where it used to be you measure it as far as perceived awareness. Like, you got published in this newspaper, they have X amount of subscribers. That's how many people we possibly reached. However, now we're actually able to calculate a little more of what the ROI looks like on public relations, which really didn't exist before. That made it a little difficult for public relations to kind of show that value. So that's a great piece, especially because PR is tied in with social and marketing a little more. It's just going to be more and more important for every piece of every campaign to show exactly the results that it got.
And I think your task as consultants is going to be to get your client to articulate what their goals are for their marketing. And everybody says, oh, well, we want more sales. Well, how does that specifically work? Do you want more people to contact your sales department to get that sale? Do you want more people to, choose a certain product over another product? Do you want to build awareness? Do you want people to download a specific PDF or some other kind of content? So if you can get your clients to actually establish what they want to do, besides, a little more in depth and how they want to measure it, the key performance indicator, which would be, for everyone that download, we did a tourist group, not a company, but organization. And they had a Seeing Berks County brochure that they would send out. And they found out for every 10 brochures, there would be a hotel booking because there were coupons in the brochures. So one of their KPIs was, how many brochures do we send? And that could actually get turned into a profitable, measurable profit margin. So by establishing all these goals, that then has to be factored into all your tactics. So you need to turn them into a measurable conversion. And you can do this with like billboards. You can do it with pretty much anything. Billboards, a common thing you'll see is visit us at thinkanderson.com/special offer or /marketing. And then everybody who goes to that was directly a result of the billboard. And then you can do that in social and anything else. And then once you've got your conversions and you're measuring, you need to have some kind of reporting system set up that's going to follow it all the way through and tabulate how the results are going. And that could be as simple as Google Analytics or Facebook Insights. We usually at Anderson combine a couple different ones to get a report together. And then once you manage that, you will hopefully understand how that data relates because you've set it up as specific goals and KPIs. You say, oh, look, these ads are referring a lot of traffic directly to this product and it's resulting in a sale. So therefore, this is where we want to be spending our money next year. And you can actually come out with how your business needs to change in order to address these needs of the client because you're collecting that data. So as far as the transformative power of data goes, what we want to do is target your specific market. So we instead of just saying we want to reach people in the steel industry, we're going to say we want a specific, steel fabricators in this area who have a business size of X people plus, and you can get, very down into the minutia, who have welding services, who do not. Then you want to communicate with your customers the way that they are most comfortable. If it's going to be a trade magazine, most likely it's now a trade blog. There's going to be influencers who speak that language and are putting out content. And you want to be part of that conversation, even if it's just responding to those articles. In our fabrication company, we find that a valuable way. Thanks a lot, Joe. That was a great lecture. And then, there you are. You're just part of it. And then you want to monitor your tactics as they're happening. So if that's Google Ads, you want to be seeing what's working and then adjust accordingly. And lastly, you want to calculate how the whole thing went and change your business model to reflect it.
So that's really that's what the customer-centric age looks like. So essentially what we see is that customers kind of shifted without really having to do much outside of purchasing a smart device. And the bulk of the work seems to be on businesses, especially if you're behind or you haven't really looked at anything beyond websites up till now. Online research, by and large, has replaced the in-store experience. And as we were talking about, has it replaced sales? Maybe not, but there's the content being created by marketing is doing some of what used to be traditional sales work, that gathering information. Now, luckily, data can inform how you can adjust your marketing tactics, and it's on the fly. It's real time. If you want to see individual people coming into your website down to a granular level, you can really drill down pretty deep. But companies really have to make a conscious and specific effort to adjust. And it's as we keep talking about with speed, it'll just keep increasing.
Yeah.
It'll get more complex.
But I always like to tell people, in the end, it really comes down to companies like Google just trying to answer the questions of the person making the inquiry. So with that idea in your head, it's just a matter of making what packaging it in a way that Google's going to say, or Facebook, or wherever they happen to be, that's the handiest knowledge available. So if you can get your content to match your customer, which the data can help you figure out, then it's going to be easily digested and probably a significant part of the 70% of the knowledge that they've gained before they make that decision. So that takes care of our presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
If nobody else has one, I'll hop in, but if somebody else has one, please go ahead in front of me.
Go for it, Doug.
Knowing that in the world, nothing always works and nothing never works.
Right.
In your experience, what industries or what applications have been the hardest enigma for you two guys to crack?
Well, by and large, I think B2C, because there's a direct conversation, I feel like that one's easier to crack. Or B2C, it's easier to crack. B2B seems to be a little more difficult because, especially with how visual things have to be, that's definitely more difficult. If you offer, even as consultants, offering a service that you can't show, you don't have a product that sits in your hand that you could show a picture of or show action shots happening. And it's a little more difficult to deliver that message visually when it's so heavily favoring visuals. And even in copy too.
And targeting can be a little more difficult in the business-to-business world as far as decision makers. I'm sure you found this with your clients. Decision makers aren't the purchasing agent anymore. There isn't a single title. Often it can be anything from the owner to the chief marketing officer to the inventory control, whatever it is, who's actually the decision maker. And you'll find a lot of times people aren't making decisions anymore as a single person. It's often a consensus. I personally believe that it might be people are now trying to cover their butt a little more, so they don't want to be the guy who made that decision. So in terms of marketing, it then becomes, are you going to address the related questions as far as related to the product, as far as here's the service we get, or are you going to be addressing how to make that specific individual's life easier with their boss? Because a lot of times we get into the reporting here, they're going to say, I need guaranteed results. I need a guaranteed win on this experience. So you have to figure out a way to communicate not only why our product's better, but you have to say, and you'll be able to measure your results this way. Basically saying, you know, when you give that spreadsheet to your boss, here's how you're going to show them this was a good decision. And that's what makes B2B a little more complex than the B2C, which can be just as fast as, hey, you're going to feel great when you buy this product, and then they're done. So I think, and as far as specific industries, it runs the gambit. A lot of manufacturing industries are tough because they have a large scope of size. You know, I did work once with a stone crushing manufacturer. They made stone crushing equipment, and you know, so they had big industries which needed specific metrics. But 40% of their business was these family-owned quarries and mines, and it was, you know, I think they call it belly-to-belly negotiations, where they just be there in person. So the messaging gets really tough because you have to dissect your budget into these two groups. You know, you have to, without looking like a uncaring cold giant, you have to also show that you're capable. So it kind of became, we're going to target these small guys this way, but we're also going to create an appearance or a brand that's around capabilities. So that's where industrial can also get a little tougher. So that's about how it goes, Doug. We have a general question from Kathy to everyone, not knowing whether you're monitoring the chat feature or not. No, I don't think we are, yeah.
How does the evangelism work? I can understand reviews and testimonials, but businesses don't typically hop on social media and talk about the good business they had with another company. Would testimonials on our website be about the best we can do there?
Right. For B2B, so Kathy, you're looking for B2B testimonials. Actually, Jenny, can you show us how to look at the chat, just so we're not missing out here? Sorry for missing you, Kathy. So for testimonials, they're still going to be existing in some key areas. Google is the number one. Facebook is fairly significant with B2B, but also in chat and LinkedIn is going to be a good thing. And as far as, sorry, now I'm getting distracted. But as far as getting reviews, it can also be socially. You'll find that most of your customers and their customers are also looking for content on social. I know everybody has the problem. Well, how do I get any followers? The answer is you provide content that's interesting to your clients. So for every client you do a service for, make sure on your Facebook you reach out to their Facebook page because they're in the same boat. How do I get more content? And say, hey, it was great working with you guys on this project. Here's a few pictures, or here's something that a takeaway from that project. Thanks a lot. And so now it's on their page. And you'll find that just by doing that kind of outreach, they'll start to reciprocate. And that's similar to a review, is you get people talking in a positive way on any platform. Because believe it or not, you may not have a whole lot of followers, but Google is still indexing those posts. So that content, even if nobody's there, Google's actually there. And Google's saying, oh, okay, they're talking about this specific topic. So when the person in the same area as you does a search, Google says, all right, well, these people are in the same area talking about the same thing. We'll give them some of this content. So that can be a big help. Did you get the chat, Jenna? Oh, no chat. So Doug, you're assigned as our chat watchman here.
All right, from Grant Tate to everyone, how about a Twitter feed for each of our development sessions?
As far as that goes, I don't really understand. Do you understand it?
The conference I was telling you about that we have 3 times a year, it's our affiliate development session.
Come on over here, Jenna.
Are you talking about at the Power Summit? For a Twitter feed for that?
Grant, why don't you take yourself off mute?
I got it.
There we go. Okay. What I was thinking about is that in our development sessions, we may run sessions, for instance, once a week for 9 weeks. We could set up a Twitter feed for each of those sessions and have each person give their feedback for each of the sessions as we go.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, any kind of commenting is going to be good. I mean,
Yeah, any kind of comments, any kind of key insights. Yeah, because what we typically see with trade shows, if you're not there and you're not live tweeting it, usually the next day there'll be a blog post up about here are the key insights I got from this conference. That's really, yeah, if you're not live tweeting during the event, that's what we usually see.
and Grant, are you saying like you guys will be developing a website and it'll be like the different stages of that, or what are you doing?
No, typically if we run a series with a group, we may have 9 different development segments of 2 hours each,
Okay.
maybe one per week.
Mhm.
And for each of those sessions, we like to get feedback on, well, how did it go for you folks?
Right.
And
Gotcha.
so we transferred that into a Twitter feed and said, okay, also, why don't you give us some feedback on the Twitter feed as well?
Right. And that's good. But if you can get them on Google or some of the kind of official places for reviews, that's always going to trump it, because you know, it's always good. I mean, it still is good to have reviews or testimonials on your site, but in order to get it trusted, if you can get it on a neutral one, that's great. And there's resources like Podium. There's another one that you can set it up and it will automatically send emails to, this gets back to marketing automation. It'll send an email out to all of the people on your list saying, hey, how do we do? We really depend on reviews. And right there, it'll have the button. So the person can just click the button and write the review, and it goes out on Google or Facebook or whatever. And that
could you tell us the name of that again, please?
Podium is one of them.
Podium?
Yeah. And for the life of me, I can't remember what the second one is. But,
okay, that's good. We can take it from there.
If you Google Podium, the others will come up.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check out, but thank you guys very much. It's been very
Absolutely, Grant. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. That was very interesting.
Good.
You know a little bit, I assume, about the type of business that we do as consultants and business coaches. If I would ask you generically, what are the 3 main topics somebody like with a business like ours needs to watch out for with respect to marketing now?
I think customer focus is going to be the primary one, and how important it is to try to wheedle it down to these very specifics, as specific as you can get for, what is your most qualified buyer, and then start crafting. So then you find out where that customer is, and then the next part is what we call crafting a message, but it's really content is the key, is the word that people use in the industry. And that content is going to be, you want your clients to be creating content in a way that it's going to be the answer to, it's almost like reverse Jeopardy. This is the answer to what question? So, you have your client, they say, okay, these are the people we're trying to reach. Now you say, okay, what questions are those people asking? And that can be through looking at your competitors, or it can be through monitoring how they're interacting on social. But once you know what questions they're asking, and it can be actually the Google searches themselves, but once you understand those questions, they need to modify or align their content, which is whatever they're writing about, whatever's on their website, whatever their ads say, any kind of outreach has to be catered to that customer and the content they're looking for. Because it's no longer them going out to your website and looking around. It's more, they're just asking Google. And Google says, all right, what content is best for you? So if you can get them in that mindset of who's my customer, what are they typing into Google, and what kind of an answer are they looking for? And if they can give that answer, that's the number one takeaway, I would say.
And I'll add one. When you're looking at data, look for something that surprises you. We have a couple clients, and when I look at their Twitter analytics, it will tell me all of your Twitter followers and their interests. And when I rank their interests, I find out a lot of the people following us like dogs. which doesn't really apply to the business, but imagine that I find some way to organically talk about dogs. If it's a health client, maybe it's here are 5 health benefits to walking your dog every day. And suddenly the engagement goes up. And it's not something I would have ever thought before, but I found something surprising, some really interesting insights through that reporting. You might find that it turns out you're creating content for mostly female readers when you thought they were male readers. So that's going to make sure you definitely adjust your content to go to the people who are actually reading it. I find surprising that all the time, and it's alarming to the client because they didn't know that, but it's also alarming to me because then they want to jump on that, and it has to be kind of come into that organically.
There's a great example of Home Depot. They had always looked at their data and it said, men are making the purchases. So they assumed that their market was men, even though it was well known that women are usually the decision makers in the household. So, but they said, well, it's the man paying, so therefore it's the man buying. But what they found was women actually will have the man buy the thing. So if a guy goes in with his wife, the wife says, yeah, that's the one we need. He says, okay. He pulls it off the shelf and he goes and pays for it. And once they made that distinction, they started coming at things from more of a home. They said, we started to concentrate on the home in Home Depot. So it became more home goods. And that's, their sales went through the roof. So what they realized, it actually was about 50-50 men to women, just that the norms were, and what was being measured wasn't consistent with what was actually happening. And that gets back to what you're saying is, if you can find other things, they can tip you off and, oh, there's something we're missing there.
And it also gives you another differentiator because some of the things, as technology evolves and things become commoditized, you're going to keep searching for those differentiators. And the data, when you really drill down, that's where you're going to find that kind of stuff.
And another thing for you as a consultant, there's a pitfall people often fall into, which is, how do I understand the web and how it works? There's just so much information. How do I digest it all? Is there a way to, control what's going on? And the answer is no, there isn't. So what you need to do is you need to have an understanding of what's basically going on. And that's why I like to say, Google's just trying to find the best information to give that specific person searching online. So that's kind of the theme that carries through. There's going to be 1,000 tactics that come up. Oh, get on Waze. It's the new traffic software, and they have ads. Well, maybe we got to do Waze ads. That can be something you can experiment. And since you can monitor in real time, you can say, well, we'll try it for, usually 3 months is a good period to try something. And then we'll just either add to it or subtract from it. But your overall goal is still, what are our goals? What do we want our marketing to make our targets do? And then how is whatever we're doing affecting that? So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I need to understand all the possible tactics out there to do this effectively. Yeah,
that's what we have to do.
That's what we do for a living.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much, everybody. This was a good time.
Do you have time for one more from Mike Myers?
Sure.
It seems like you can overdo it and irritate customers. Example, all the requests that you get for product reviews, or the number of emails, you don't respond in 15 seconds and you got another one. Oh, I see you didn't respond to my email.
Right. Totally.
What are you seeing in terms of, is the pendulum starting to swing too far the other direction in terms of overkill?
Well, I think you touched on this, James, with authenticity. When we got back to, whether people trust a review over a salesperson, in the end, it comes down to the vendor or your client has to be genuine in what they're doing. And if they can understand their client, they may not realize the client doesn't want to get 100 generic emails that just say, hey, we just hired Marcia today. Come buy our products. It can be, we hired Marcia today, but don't put it in an email. So it really comes down to understanding your client and how they're communicating. And based on that, and sometimes it's just as simple as saying, a lot of times your clients are going to be similar to their demographic, especially if it's industrial. Usually it's going to be a male in his 40s or something. Usually their communication style is going to be similar to their clients. And as a consultant, it's as easy as saying, how often do you like to get emails from your vendors? And so that's how that works.
Are you just as one quick follow-up, are you finding massive amounts of difference of buyer behavior based on generational differences on B2B versus B2C?
Well, that's a really good, that's a whole nother webinar. But
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, that's definitely.
better get to work on it. But overall, I think that's something that people often overlook. You know, the millennials, that's 35 years old. There's now millennial CEOs coming in. And, you know, the perception of a lot of our clients, and your clients too, is the man in charge or the woman in charge is going to be a Gen X or even a boomer. That's not happening anymore. So you'll find that, you know, we have sometimes a salesperson goes in thinking, all right, I got to start big. Here's what the industry's about. Here's why our company's, you say that to a millennial, he's like, where's the benefit to me? You're wasting
What
my
are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's why the whole millennial thing is very different as far as how they process information, how they get information, what they expect you to do as the vendor. So yes, there's a big difference in those different target markets, which gets back to understanding how your markets communicate. Because even the boomers are on, usually Facebook is where they like to go. And they have their own ways of communicating online and expectations.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else? All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Here comes Jenna.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to wrap this up now, and we'll have a recording, and I believe we're going to have the presentation as well available to you guys soon. So,
All right.
Thanks
Thanks
guys.
again.